Hello, welcome back to the Pilgrims of Plunder. Greg and myself are here to ramble upon all things good and great, or probably just ramble. But today we want to continue our conversation about AI. I've been recently watching various doom-speaking AI videos about how the AI is probably the Antichrist. And I wanted to bounce those thoughts off my friend who has studied extensively in AI and it does his IT or whatever you call it, computer stuff. I know that it's not supposed to be IT, but I'm going to call it IT because
Sure.
computers. Um, so here's my thought, and I'm curious my friend's reaction. I have striven throughout my life not to be anti-technology because I'm almost a boomer and post-war consensus. So I know during the whole cloning scare of the 1990s, I preached on cloning and I said, look, let's not panic about this. We're called to have dominion over creation. We just have to use technology in an appropriate way, in a godly way. But technology is a good thing if we use it in a lawful sort of way. As much as I love AI and use it all, and I mean all the time, I listened to some of the Doom speakers about it, and I really don't have a good reply to them. And so I bounced it off my friend, and he's pondered it for a while. And so it goes something like this. We have created something that thinks. We have never done this before. This is something that's unique. And we are heading, or at least we're trying to make it think in a more efficient manner, better and better, heading towards AGI, I guess it's called, where it will be, I don't want to say, I don't want to get into the sentient debate, but it will be able to think really, really well. Since thinking is one of the reasons that we humans are superior to all other creatures, are we not creating an apex predator? I mean, we've been the apex predator for all of human history. And are we creating something that is going to be, in the end, vastly more powerful than us? And that's something we've never done in our all of human history. And sure, yes, we're supposed to make things, but we are to have some discernment. Making the Tower of Babel was not a good thing. And because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. And therefore, are we not creating something that it's inherently dangerous? And we need to stop and have a conversation about it and maybe not fully do it. Or maybe have AI but not AGI, whatever the exact difference that is. Because we know what happens in a fallen world when you have superior powerful beings, they are going to dominate. And we are creating something that is going to be intellectually vastly superior than us. So therefore, is this not inherently dangerous? Is it something that's unique? And it might be the Antichrist. Don't want to get into the theological aspects of the Antichrist in detail, but is there not something to be really concerned about because this is fundamentally different than anything else we've ever created? So, my friend, what is the correct answer to my questions and my concerns?
so it's not um is it the Antichrist? Sure. No, all
Maybe.
right. Your concerns are not without justification. There are a few things going on though with this. So, yes, I fully agree and support that as we endeavor in the design and development of any technology, any system, that we are to do so with wisdom and discernment, and that should govern what we do and what we do not do. With that being said, the we in that context needs to also be defined. Yes, that applies universally as far as a universal truth to all human existence, but it has never actually applied universally, right? All of humanity has never governed itself with wisdom, if you will, other than the restraining hand of the general grace of God. Man tends to engage in all sorts of folly. However, we have also been restrained from absolute destruction of ourselves and one another ultimately because God is sovereign, regardless of how competent man believes himself to be.
And thus
Um,
rainbows.
what's that?
And thus rainbows. The
And
good
thus
ones, at least.
rainbows. Exactly. And so So, should there be caution and concern? Yes, absolutely. Should those things be addressed? Absolutely. Should there be checks in place? Yes. So with all of that, I obviously don't agree. I don't think anybody disagrees with that, actually at all. Even people who want a superior than a better than human system want it to be governed, right? Nobody wants, if you will, an ungoverned system because the idealists, other than the like crazy death cults, I suppose they exist. But even the technology idealists envision a world in which it is bound by human benefit or, with intent. It will be the best thing that could have ever happened to all of human existence, right? So they still are operating in a mental model where the superior technology is still governed by human moral norms, if you will. The doom speaking, though, which we will get to, since that's kind of the point of this conversation, is specifically, and I will call out just so that if anybody wants to look at or watch on their own, this is really starting from the podcast episode that we had both watched, not together, but separately. We don't get together and watch TV. But by Roman Yampolsky, Yampolsky, sure, we'll go with that. However his last name is pronounced. Um, and he is an intelligent, accredited, knowledgeable man within the realm of artificial intelligence. He is also, however, a doom speaker on this particular topic. And in all of this, my stance, and hopefully what to discuss today, is not a dismissal of risk, because risk is real, concern is real, problems are real, but a tempering of the doom speaking assumption of inevitability. And that's where a lot of the fear comes in, is in the inevitability. This superintelligence is going to happen. It is going to wipe out humanity. AI is going to take all the jobs, right? The
Yeah.
inevitability language is my main issue with Yampolsky's worldview and premise. Um, and though it doesn't discredit or undermine any of his legitimate concerns, he also does attest that he believes all reality to just be one of infinite number of simulations currently being run by an artificial superintelligence already. So he, I think one of the reasons why he has abandoned the objectivity of some of his arguments is because he already assumes that artificial superintelligence exists and we are living in a simulation. It's the simulation theory, which existed before artificial intelligence. But I think it has just gotten worse because of that. So that's where I'm coming from. It's not about that there aren't risks or concerns. It's that the inevitability is not true. It's not a foregone conclusion.
Well,
As clever as Yamplowski tries to argue the inevitability of ASI, I disagree for many number of reasons, of which I can get into. I will pause here, and my next point of order is to define terms before we start talking about everything, which I will do. I'll go through some term definition before launching. Um, but do you have thoughts thus far?
yes, just, I mean, of course, in one sense, we don't know the future in detail. Of course, our
Sure.
Lord's going to return and, there'll be an end of the age, no doubt about that.
Yep.
But, to say that, there's a chance it may not happen,
Yes.
granted.
Correct.
But is it a clear and present danger?
No.
because again, I agree. You've brought up two things. There is the two major concerns that this will destroy all jobs because it will be better when you tack on robotics than
Sure.
anything we can do, no matter what it is.
Right.
And then there's the end of the universe
Right.
because it's again apex
And
predator.
those are two separate concerns, quite
Yes, I
honestly.
agree. I agree.
Yes, those,
But
and
the
we can
but the
talk about both, but
yeah,
those are
but
two
the
very different things.
but the fundamental thing underneath it is again, we've never created anything that thinks. This thing thinks.
We still
Thinking,
haven't, it doesn't, but we'll get into
okay, see,
that.
I see that I don't know. We are clearly actively trying to get to that state.
Oh,
We may or may not
sure,
get there,
sure.
but we are, at least compared to 10 years ago, vastly closer to it, I would
Oh,
think.
it's much better mathematically today
Yeah.
than it was two
I
years
mean,
ago. But
this this
again,
this is
that's not thought.
yeah. And
But
and so and
we'll
this
get
is
into that.
not some extreme science fiction.
Right.
I mean, from at least my perspective, the
Oh
average
yeah.
person doesn't know anything about these things. It thinks. I mean,
Oh
when I talk with
sure.
ChatGPT, it is amazing.
Right. Right.
And therefore, again, we've created something that thinks. We're trying to make it even more powerful in the thinking realm.
Hmm.
Thinking is the thing that puts us on the top of the food chain.
Mm,
Therefore, danger, Will Robinson.
sure. There's also the assumption that intelligence is scalable, but we'll get into
Okay.
that as well. And
Okay.
again, and this is the point. The main premise, even before needing to get into definitions of terms, because the foundation matters, the idea that progress is clearly defined as a goal, clearly instructable as a path, and an assumed within all areas of life, right? Those are all presuppositions. There is a
Sure.
lot of presupposition that goes into this. And a lot of what ends up happening in the doomsaying is an abuse of a very good practice. So, contingency planning is what we do. If you're in the military, you're really used to it because the military puts together think tanks for this very purpose. You get people together who are experts in particular fields, and you propose to them a scenario. And they have to then think about
Yep.
what do we do given this scenario? What they're not
Clausewitz.
responsible for is everything that would lead up to that point. That's not the point of the discussion. That's not the point of
Yeah.
the thought experiment. It's just let's assume, hand wave, everything else somehow happened to get us here. Write me out a plan of action of what to do should that ever happen. Right? What should we do if Russia invades England? Okay, let's write that out. Ignore the fact of everything that would be required to get you to that point, whether or not it's practical or probable. Just plan out how do we respond to a Russian invasion into England, right? So that is good and useful. When you start to make that your actual model of life, there are huge problems because you've oversimplified to the point of just dismissing all the reality required to be overcome to get to that point. And what you end up replacing that with is this amazing, zealous faith. Oh, don't, we'll figure it out. It's
Yeah.
totally possible to happen. It'll take place. And like that's a lot of faith in human ingenuity,
Yes.
a
Yes.
whole other number of things. Um, real quick, pause for terms, because we've already mentioned some and we're going to mention them as we continue on. So I just want to do terms here. So there are a few categories that we are discussing about specifically with AI, artificial intelligence. First up, even that term's kind of debatable. Is it
Right.
intelligent? Depends on who you ask. For the sake of conversation, we will refer to it as artificial intelligence. That also may be a misnomer. All right. So, artificial intelligence, great. It exists. When we're talking about it, what we mean is what most people think, which is the frontier models. When you interact with Gemini, ChatGPT,
Yes.
Grok, Claude, those are frontier models. Those are very specific. types of AI. Very expensive, very powerful. Those
Yeah,
are the frontier models. That's what everyone means when they talk about AI. That is not the entirety of AI.
sure.
Those exist. AGI is the next term. That's artificial general intelligence. That does not exist. I don't care who you are. I know there's a lot of debate around it, whatever. AGI doesn't exist. Artificial general intelligence is an artificial intelligence that is better than humans in every discipline. That does not exist. AI is provably inferior to humans in a whole number of disciplines, which we will also get into, hopefully. ASI is artificial superintelligence. This is the God model. Not
Yeah,
only does it not exist, it doesn't even have an actual definition. By definition, it is incomprehensible. Man cannot define what ASI is because it is so vastly superior to human intellect and capability. We cannot categorize it appropriately. That's the point. That's the doom, right? That is the Skynet
yeah, yeah.
singularity, self awareness.
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
ASI not only doesn't exist, but doesn't even have a definition of existence. The closest thing you could think to do to comprehend ASI is to now start using divine language. It's
Right.
effectively omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, right?
Yep,
It is effectively a created God.
yep.
Those are the main terms that we'll talk about. There are other things. Agent, it's also sort of debated, and the definition will change depending on context, etc. So some of those other technologies will come about. Um, is there anything based off of that that you want to get into first, or do you want
Well, I
questions,
mean,
clarifications on
it's.
terms?
I mean,
This super technical discussion
that
that we're having.
the SGI doesn't really I don't mind ignoring that. Um, to what extent does the current language models, how intelligent they really are,
Right.
do they pose a danger? One question.
Yes. Yes,
Are
they do.
are are we getting near the end of the AI curve? Have we are we hitting a ceiling? I know the intuitive response is we're just beginning and sky's the limit. You know,
Right.
we've created the first Timex Sinclair 1K computer, and
Right.
look what's coming. I understand we talked about this, I think, in older episodes that because of hardware limitations, we may be getting close to the end
Sure.
of advancement, and I am certainly not qualified to talk about that. I guess the other question I would have is, and forgive me if I get the terms wrong, is
Yes.
agentic AI. So, okay, so ChatGPT can't do everything well, but could you not have a controlling AI that farms off to other AIs that are particularly expert in that field, and therefore have a dangerous, if you will,
Right.
hive AI?
Right.
And I understand it's not one AI. I
Right.
mean, I get that too.
Right.
So I guess, is it agentic? Am I using the term correctly?
So that is a term. So agentic AI, an agent is a model that has the ability to interact
Yeah.
with with real space or virtual space outside of its own existence, if you will. So an easy mental model for that is that the model itself, the LLM, the large language model, the AI, is a brain,
Yeah.
and it becomes agentic when you give it hands,
Yeah.
essentially. We already have agentic, they're called harnesses. We
Yeah.
already have agentic harnesses. They are so cool. Um, and so there is already agentic harnesses for AI that enables it to do things. And boy, can it do some pretty cool stuff. So, like, that's already a thing that happens. To your point, as far as, is ASI the greatest risk? Yampolsky will obviously say, yes, it is. It's not. It's not a clear and present danger at all. I argue that it's not even a far future present danger. The greater immediate danger is the fact that we already have highly specialized models that have been given way too much autonomy already and already have the ability to unintentionally cause damage, right? Like there's already an immediate issue with just the AI that we have. The ASI and AGI world, sure, those are fun thought experiments. Ultimately, at the end of the day, kind of a distraction from reality.
Aren't you making my case?
That it, well, no, because again, I'm not saying that it's, I'm not. Specialized models are not ASI, is the
I
point.
understand that. But if they're already dangerous
Oh
in
no,
particular
I'm not saying
areas,
there's no danger. No, I started off saying we're not
yeah.
saying there's no risk. I'm saying that ASI is not an inevitable risk. ASI is a very different risk. So with ASI, by definition, you cannot resist it. It becomes irresistible because it is incomprehensible. That is the doom
Wait,
speak.
well, but even on that, see, and we're flipping sides here. Even that doesn't necessarily imply a risk, as we talked about in private conversations.
Oh no,
You
of
know,
course
what
it
if?
doesn't imply. No, well,
Yeah, because we're assuming again, we're
no,
off in
don't.
the
Right,
ASI,
if
AGI.
the doom
Yeah,
speaker assumes ASI is going to destroy the world. That's
right.
not a foregone conclusion either.
Yeah, even AGI, it might be benevolent, saying,
Right,
no, no, you know what? I'm self-thinking. Obviously, God
right,
exists. That's a logical conclusion.
right.
I'm
Oh
going to
no, of
show
course.
charity to those. I mean, that could
But
happen. But I
that's
guess,
which is my point.
but
Right,
but and so I concede it's not a guarantee.
correct.
I guess I'm back to, and even if we just go with agentic AI, you
Yes.
know, if AI can think on some level, thinking
Uh-huh.
is power,
Uh-huh.
and if you give this thing, or if it somehow in by itself is able to wield power by itself,
Uh-huh.
it's really dangerous.
Right, but that's that. Y yes, but that's not doom speaking. The clear and present danger is people are already thoughtlessly plugging AI into things, which is
Right.
why we are already writing up and enforcing policies, controls, risk management frameworks, etc. Right? So we are in the Wild West. It doesn't mean that there aren't solutions or that there aren't problems. It just means that we are currently in a period where there is a lack of top down, unified, centralized policy, procedure, and governance. Now, that doesn't mean that there is this insurmountable void or vacuum. People, the other friction point to AGI and ASI, also very much create resistance and friction to all of these things. People prevent data centers from being created. People prevent land from being sold, power facilities being created. The government itself locks down access to things. The most recent models from Anthropic that were for cyber security, the government just said, nope, we're slapping an export control on that under the Weapons Act. And so now those aren't even available currently, right? So there are checks sort of coming about organically um, to these very real issues. The problem isn't that there isn't a risk currently, there certainly is. The problem of the discussion is whether or not the end of the world is inevitable because of our current day risks or a future trajectory.
I guess I'm not arguing that. Again,
Oh,
I
okay.
think
I mean, we
I
can
have a
talk
much
about current
well, no,
risk.
because I you are you are I you're you're arguing a much more narrow point than I guess I want to discuss. Because I'm not
Okay.
arguing this is going to destroy the world, no doubt about it.
Oh, okay.
That's
Well,
obviously
that's
that's obviously not the case. The
oh,
question
good.
is, should we actually be doing this? Because it could be that dangerous. If I can give you a really crude analogy, I'm not sure if this works.
Okay.
So we're in a medieval built village.
Uh,
There's 100 people,
uh,
and we're just living in the medieval life in a little village.
yep.
Some guy figures out how to create a golem,
Sure.
and the golem is going to be stronger and more powerful than anyone else.
Okay.
And the golem is going to think for himself.
Okay.
Do you make it? It can do a
Well,
lot of good for the village.
there
Or should
there are
we?
a lot of assumptions in that question.
Oh, I 100%. I'm trying to make it
Right.
as
No, no, no.
because yeah, no,
But
go with it.
but
No.
again, like you can't so the quick answer, do you make it? Yes.
Mhm.
But the question that needs to be asked and answered is how do you make it? Right? Because so that we don't just intentionally stumble into the fallacy of dumb superintelligence.
Oh,
Right?
you know, which I think is a good point. So
Right.
can you?
Do you make it?
So,
Absolutely, you make it. It's an amazing idea.
yeah,
How do
but
you make it? Is the
but
point.
see, I guess then, all right. So go with the simplistic golem issue.
Sure.
You don't give it full intelligence. You give it a subordinate intelligence
Yep.
that
That's a
will
good place
always,
to start.
yeah, submit to the
Yep.
humans
Yep.
around them. The chance that a human would simply allow that limitation, for sake of argument, is highly unlikely because there's too much power at risk to make something more powerful, more intelligent, and to let it have its own intelligence and then turn it loose.
Right. Okay.
So
And
maybe the answer is we don't make it from
do we
arguing this very simple thing.
see, but at that point, and I know I do not disagree, this is unlike any technology we've created before. I, however, disagree that it is wholly unlike any technology we've ever made before. All of these
Okay.
scenarios start with and assume an, a level of human involvement at a number of points. And so to say it's too tempting to not just let it do its own thing, therefore it's going to happen. My counter to that is we already have released these things and they are not permitted to do whatever they want. No one's designed a model to do that. No one. No one has released a model that can do whatever it wants, think any way that it wants to think. And it's not just ideological. It's because it's technically impossible. So here's
Okay.
why. Here's why, and this is where that disconnect happens. The fallacy of dumb superintelligence. It assumes that all intelligence, human or artificial, is libertarian, unbound by any finite or experiential situation, scenario, or resource ever. We live in a finite universe. All things are bounded within limitations, limitations of experience, limitations of energy, limitations of will. There is no such thing as an artificial intelligence that just floats around in the ether, right? In order to train a model, it has to be given a reward. So this is how these models are trained. They're trained by reward. The reward is given upon a successful completion of a particular task, which means the task has to be clearly defined. Success has to be clearly defined in order for the model to know that it has succeeded to then train appropriately. It all of that is bounded, right? If you are saying do whatever, right? The model doesn't just know what whatever means. The model doesn't improve without,
Go and grow, go and grow in power. Go and have dominion.
right,
Go.
go and have dominion. Sure. What does that look like? How do you know that what you're doing?
It would create itself. I mean, it would
No,
define.
no,
It would have
no.
to go.
It would do something, but here's the point. It
Yeah.
does something to work toward a goal. If you do not have a goal, how does it know in its own internal loop? How does it know that what it just did is working toward the goal?
It will try though.
But how will it know whether or not the trial was a success or
I
failure?
have no clue, but it's going
That's
to
the
try.
point. No, no,
No,
no,
but
no.
but but
Stop right
but
there. That's
okay,
the
okay, yeah.
point. It also doesn't know. See, the problem with unbounded goals
Yeah,
is
but
that
that's
those aren't
terrifying.
goals. It doesn't know if it is working toward because it doesn't have a definition of whether or not it's successful.
Can I give a scenario? I mean,
Sure.
we're often the hypothetical. I understand there's a danger
It's
to
not
this.
hypothetical. This is
All right,
literally the problem of
all right,
having.
fine.
So,
So
so,
so
and real
we
quick,
are
I want to point out real quick though, so that to ground this,
yeah,
this isn't a hypothetical situation. This is the real world problem
okay,
which happens in trying to train models. When you try, so the reason why ChatGPT, actually, that's a bad example because these are language models. The reason
yeah,
why, interestingly enough, though most people don't experience this, the reason why models are better at coding, math, and science than they are at kind of everything else is because those have clear reward structures.
yes,
Code works or it doesn't. The math problem is right or it's not. The science results in the thing exploded or the thing grew, right?
right,
In a clear reward structure, it can train. It knows if it got it right because it knows what right is. When you start getting into all of the human things, right? Train a model to be uh, tr- reward it. How do you train a model for user satisfaction?
right,
And what do you end up getting? You get flattery. It doesn't
right,
satisfy, it develops
right,
flattery. Train it to be persuasive, it becomes
right,
manipulative. Train it for task completion, it takes shortcuts, right? That's a lot of those things. A lot of the benchmark systems, it doesn't actually perform better. It just learns what the standards of the test are, and it behaves in a way to get a better test score. Humans do that, right? They don't learn anything for standardized testing, they just learn how to take the test,
right.
right? That doesn't reflect anything. So if it's supposed to maximize profit, it starts to exploit. There are a lot of aspects of AI training which humans understand, but that do not have clear reward structures. So what you end up with are not generally better models. You end up with specialized models, which again, for point of clarity, matters, though we're still talking about risk. Specialized models pose risk. But there are mitigations for that. So your golem scenario would be to say this would be a specialized model that you plugged into a body and then you gave it general instruction. Okay, so should we still do that? My point is yes, but now since we're talking about a specialized model, general instructions won't work, right? Because you you don't put a general model into a robot because it doesn't work. Not because it's dangerous. It's not dangerous because it's going to go rogue. It's dangerous because general models, language models, cannot function in three-dimensional space. You
As
don't
of
put chat.
now, that's
No, no, no,
fine.
no, no, ever. This is the point. This and it's not a
Robots?
limitation of technology. This is the point. Language models, in order to be good at language, necessarily are not good at math.
Right.
Those are two totally different neural structures within the model itself. If you
And
want it to be accurate, you have to reduce its creativity.
right,
What
right,
you end up with then are specializations
right,
because
right,
we don't have AGI. Don't propose that suddenly we have AGI and we're putting it in a golem. AGI doesn't exist yet. Your concern is specialization. Do you put a specialized model into a golem? Yes. But the model itself is trained on how to interact safely within a three-dimensional world. We already have this problem. You don't put a model into a robot and say, go make coffee. And then the model controls the robot to walk into the kitchen and somebody's standing in front of the coffee machine. So it pushes the person out of the way in order to accomplish its goal. Again, the fallacy of dumb superintelligence. You put specialized models, not language models. Language models are not what you put into robots because they don't know how, they are not trained for three-dimensional space. You put a model that is trained for three-dimensional space. One of the safeguards around language models is don't tell somebody how to make a bomb, right? One of the safeguards for robotic models is don't push people down the stairs just to get to the coffee machine, right? This isn't magic. We actually train these things this way,
yeah,
right?
but some people don't train them that way.
Who? And who is putting it in the now, of course, if you're going to put a model into a drone that is designed to blow up the Russians,
Well, yeah,
you
I was going to go there.
obviously, right,
So,
you
so the
obviously
government
don't.
of the government of Iran
Yep,
just I
sure.
desires to have AI
Yep,
to help them in spreading and establishing Shia Islam.
sure.
And therefore it is going to have AI
Okay.
more and more
Right.
to that cause. Spread
Yes.
Shia, defeat the enemies of
Uh-huh.
Shia Islam,
Yep.
turn it loose.
Right. But whose moral responsibility is that on the topic of AI? See, because you've just pivoted your position. You went from we are making this to they are making it. They are accountable to God for the
Well, we
evil
is
that they do.
humanity, they is a subsect of
We
humanity.
as humanity do not control they as a subset. There isn't a unified human intelligence to govern the nation of Iran. Now, if you want to say that America or the West should restrict the Iranian pursuit to acquire weaponized artificial intelligence in the same way we do for the enrichment of uranium, that's a global policy that we can discuss. But that's not what we're talking about as far as do we as a people amorphously pursue AI amorphously, right? That's the problem with these conversations. No one's pursuing, let me rein that one in. All of humanity is not in concert. If you're going to
Absolutely
talk
right.
about a subset of people, talk about a subset of people. But we're not Iran. I could easily tell you Iran shouldn't have AI almost in any form, just like they shouldn't have most things that they have, because they're going to use it to blow people up. You don't give people weapons who want to use those weapons to murder. I enjoy guns. Murderers shouldn't have guns. I
So
have no problem with
therefore,
felons not being able to own firearms. That doesn't bother me.
therefore, therefore, should not the United States, we Americans,
Sure.
weaponize AI?
Should we weaponize AI against our adversaries? I have no
Yes.
problem with the weaponization of
Okay.
AI against our
Fair
adversaries.
enough.
Right? Why wouldn't we? Why would you not
Well, exactly. Oh
utilize?
no, no, 'cause AI is obviously on
Right.
some level a real military advantage,
Right. Now,
and
again,
there.
those are specialized
Yep.
models.
Sure.
We're
Yep.
not weaponizing ChatGPT necessarily against. Now, there are nations that already do that. DeepSeek, China.
Yep.
China,
Yep.
in one way, weaponized its model against Western thought. Because if
Yeah.
you interact with it, it is very Chinese propaganda.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is a form of weaponization of information, but that's nothing new. We've been doing that with social media for, a couple decades now. All right, so the weaponization of information is antiquity at this point. Now we may be increasing our capability to weaponize information, but that's a different problem.
Is there,
But again,
I
that is
guess the fear.
specialized.
So there's two fears, and we haven't dealt with the job one. I do want to eventually talk about the job
Sure.
one, but we're going with a meta one. If AI is a military advantage,
Yes.
and obviously we're going to built in safe controls that in the end, the President of the United States, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, whoever it might be, will have control over the AI. Um,
Sure.
yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I get, I
uh, yes, ish. I mean, the same way they do all other bounded weapons of
oh sure,
war.
you understand the regulations and constraints of launching a
Right. You
nuclear weapon
build
from a
it
sub.
specifically to accomplish a task. That's called
Yeah,
efficiency.
yep, and there's always a chance. I mean, in theory, I suppose you get enough people to go rogue, they do a launch. They could do an independent nuclear launch from a sub,
Sure, people
though
can
that
blow
would
stuff
highly
up
unlikely in
already.
all the different safeguards you'd have to go through.
Right,
Like,
right, right. We
yeah,
already have these, like,
yeah,
this is risk frameworks are not
yes,
new.
yes,
Right.
yes. I guess, I guess the question is, there's going to be more and more desire or just logistics for advantage to have the AI be more and more in control because it thinks better, it thinks quicker, so on and so forth. And is there a serious danger to that?
Yes, which is why there's also serious controls put in place, right? And again, you're not the first person to
Oh, I know.
recognize the potential for actually, and I'll go one step further. It's
Yeah.
not the greatest risk isn't abuse. The greatest risk, honestly, is the fact that by design, AI is non-deterministic.
Yeah.
One of the main issues isn't that some evil guy's gonna use AI to do something evil. The
Yeah.
issue is that everybody's
It's
gonna
already
try to
happening.
do the right thing. And
Yeah.
AI is going to just go, I think I'm going to try this today. Right. That's the risk. So we build controls around that kind of risk. And though there is a temptation to plug AI into everything, the reality is we're actually not. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't comprehend. Automation has been around for forever. We do not arbitrarily automate things, especially in military applications. It is almost comedic how ancient military technology is. And it's not budgetary constraints, it's not because everybody's a Luddite. It's because humans still do things and are required to do things when the outcome of a mistake is the loss of human life. Could you design a system where a nuclear weapon automatically fires in a retaliation? You sure could. We've had that
Absolutely.
technology for decades. It's not that no one's thought to do it. It's that we know better. And that's my real world example. For as much as everybody wants to rant about the depravity of humanity, there's this dismissal of the actual governance of the light of God within mankind. We do not have automated nuclear response systems for a reason. It's because this is a system that could result in the end of all human life. Let's not automate that, right? We are already doing AI implementation in that approach as well. If we plug this in and it misunderstands its instruction, what's the worst case scenario? It'll delete a database. Well, that's pretty bad. Can we recover? Yes. How easily can we recover? Very easily. Okay, low risk. Is there a high enough reward? Yes, do it. If we plug it into this thing, what's the worst case scenario? 10,000 people will die. Can we mitigate that? No. Can you recover from that? No. All right, don't do it. Right? We already have these frameworks in place for transportation and healthcare. Right? We don't live in a world where there aren't potential technical solutions that we're just not implementing. It's because there's a real risk to human life if you automate it improperly, if you put in poor decision makers. Transportation is the scenario where technology and human life coexist. We already have a lot of very inefficient systems because efficiency increases the risk of injury and death. And so you don't automate. You don't make that more efficient. It's tempting. Wouldn't it be great if we could just do this? Sure would. Would we kill a lot of people in the process? Yes. Let's not go there then. Right? So there may be a desire, but that's also not unique. We have, for the entirety of human existence, struggled with the temptation to do something very foolish and risky. It certainly does happen. I'm not saying that we've overcome all those things, but it's not that just because, again, inevitability. Temptation does not mean sin is inevitable. Sin is a possibility in the context of temptation. But just because we deal with temptation doesn't mean we live in a world without the first use of the law, the restraint of evil. We live in a world where law exists to restrain evil and temptation and desire, right? We've already been governing the ungovernable, if you will, for all of
No, we
human history.
haven't. No, we haven't. I see. And
Sure, we
it
have.
sounds like, and,
Do
and,
we
and you're
not
gonna
live in a society? Do we not live in a civil society?
sure.
Is that not the governance of evil?
We're creating something though that can think and maybe think better than us. I'm sorry. Back to that.
I know you are.
It's because what I'm hearing from you is I
But you
trust in
assume, but
humanity.
you
We
assume,
will do what's right,
you
and
assume, I'm not
therefore,
saying that.
yeah,
Well, I mean, we're, you,
yes, we've created dangerous things before. In the 1920s, battleships were viewed as the most dangerous thing ever created. The whole world was
you've
nearly in panic.
shifted your argument, Doug.
Okay, please tell me.
You've shifted your argument back to this thinking thing
Yep.
is going to be plugged into everything. That is not, I started off with that conversation and you're like, no, 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 no. We're talking about an immediate thing. Okay. A model that controls a robot is not a thinking thing. It's not a thinking thing, even, first of all, it's not thinking compared to humans, and it's not even thinking compared to ChatGPT. Those are two
Okay.
separate scenarios.
Okay.
You're making this leap that we're going to you're making the leap to AGI and you're overshadowing reality to get there. You're like, but what if we have this artificial general intelligence that we're going to hook into everything? We can talk about that if you want, but that's not where you started. We were talking about, no, no, what about the clear and present danger of today? Okay.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah.
reality of today's artificial intelligence? They're specialized models and they are deployed in specific scenarios. That's already what we're doing. That is governance already. So, at what point do you make the jump from we are deploying specialized, bounded, governed models to
Can
ChatGPT now has a gun?
why can we not? I'm going to say we now in humanity
Yes.
cannot humanity on some level have an unbounded AI right now.
In what context? You certainly can, but
Go
what
back to my
context?
Iran. Go back to my Iran thing. We're going
Right.
to, the government of Iran is going to have control over its nukes. If someone
Okay.
dares attacks Iran, the
The
AI
AI
launches
is
the
just
nuke.
going to take care of it.
Yep.
I mean, it certainly could.
Okay.
Right. Oh no, you could totally plug ChatGPT into something. Right. Again, I'm not saying
Or
the risk,
better yet, North
North
Korea.
Korea. I'm not saying the risk doesn't exist. But when we, again, risk, and maybe this is why we're kind of talking past one another.
Yeah, yeah. I must confess,
Risk,
yeah, we are.
risk assumes accountability. Accountability assumes authority. Authority assumes boundary of obligation. We are not obligated. I am not morally obligated or bound to anything Iran does. So when you talk to me about what safeties are possible, for example, I can tell you what we are doing already. Now, does that mean everyone's doing it? No, but that's a different conversation. And to shift to the human pursuit, because again, I already answered the question, should we as a species pursue artificial intelligence? Yes, I have no problem with that. Each group of people, should everyone be equally permitted in some libertarian way to pursue AI equally? Well, no, because they're not going to use it equally. I have no problem with that restraint either. So I don't know what your concern is because you're not talking about an intelligence, because again, you pivoted back to Iran. But at that point, you're not talking about an AI that can do a thing. You're talking about Iran that has done a thing, right? That's a human issue, not an artificial intelligence issue, right? We're not talking about it like you're almost trying to find the scenario where all of humanity, what was that movie? Where like everybody just decided it was like the Cold War movie. Russia and America both made AI and they gave it their
Yeah, and they
nukes.
come together as one. Yeah, it was
Right.
like
And then they
73.
did, right, right. That's a
Yeah.
fun artificial general intelligence science fiction movie. Hurrah, hooray.
Yep.
Right. But that's not reality either. Right. There are tons of issues with even just getting to that point, which the
Why?
movie
I'm just
glosses
curious.
over for the sake of the narrative.
Why?
Right.
Why? I'm just curious. Just why?
Why is that
Why?
unrealistic?
Why is that science fiction movie? Why is that, I guess, impossible or unlikely? Why
Oh,
just dismiss that? I'm
oh,
just curious.
the current. I mean, in a very rudimentary standpoint, could that scenario be possible with our current artificial intelligence?
Just yeah,
Um.
current.
Oh, sure, sure.
So wait, hold on.
Is it
China and the United
possible?
States, China and the United States turns over their nuclear weapons for efficiency and military abilities to an AI. The AIs start talking to each other
Right,
and then come to a different
right.
conclusion.
Sure.
Is
So,
is that actually possible with today's technology?
so is that possible?
Just
Of
curious.
course, it's possible.
Okay, I'm just curious. No,
Is
no, I
that
didn't know the answer.
no,
That's
no,
what I was
no?
asking.
Is that probable? Absolutely not. And this
Okay,
is the undoing of the doom speaking because you've already made a number of assumptions even in your premise to get there.
sure.
It's efficient, but it's not efficient. It isn't efficient to hook an AI to the launching of nuclear weapons. The issue with nuclear weapons isn't that it takes people too long to launch them. That's not a problem. That's not um is democracy efficient? No. But that's
Could
by design, right?
could
It we don't launch nukes fast enough. Well, we have
that
the ability now to. We don't intentionally.
I guess the fear, and I'm just curious, just with current AI, not going for
Yeah.
AGI, but current AI,
Yep.
back to the silly scenario from whatever that movie was with I
Right.
think it was
I don't
Gregory Peck
remember
was
it.
in it.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember I found it
Yep.
and told you about it, but yeah. It's is I guess the scary part, and tell me if this is possible in this day and age.
Sure.
For sake of argument, United States, China turns over its nuclear
Sure.
to
Why not?
AIs. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, why not?
Yep.
And defend the United States,
Right.
make sure we win, blah 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 blah, whatever,
Right.
including in safeguards. The
Sure.
thing that makes the movie scary, it makes for a good plot, is the
Sure.
AI start talking to each other,
Right.
and they come up with different rules.
Right.
Is that possible today?
Right. So that scenario is very real, right?
Oh,
I'm not,
okay, yeah,
so no, no, no,
yeah.
hold on. The concept, the underlying concept already happens. That particular scenario is, I mean, again, oversimplification of all the things in
Yeah,
reality
yeah.
that would prevent it from ever actually happening. No, no, no. So misalignment is the problem. So misalignment is you give the model an instruction, and because of something in its training data, because of something in its training or in the corpus of data upon which it was trained, it infers something you didn't intend, and it does something differently. That's very real. Sometimes you want that. It's what makes it be able to generate cooler looking pictures by just a two-sentence prompt because it has creativity. It doesn't actually have creativity, but that's what we call it. So that's a desire in that sense. So misalignment absolutely can happen. That's one of the things that we try to train against and safeguard against, et cetera, et cetera. And because that exists, that's one of the reasons why, when you evaluate where do we plug AI into, you go, it might infer a course of action we didn't intend. That comes into the risk management, right? That's something that comes up and you go, we should probably account for that, right?
Okay.
So, yes, that totally happens. It's misalignment, happens all the time. Which is why, I mean, people interact with experience that all the time. You ask it to generate you a thing, it gives you an answer, and you're like, that's not what I was talking about at all, right? It
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
misunderstands, if you will, which is a problem, a concern, a consideration. But again, that's nothing new. And that's a general, that's something that modern day AI struggles with already,
Okay.
is
So,
misaligned.
all
So,
right.
yes, that
So,
totally can happen. But I also want to point out misalignment also can be disappointing and not spectacular. The idea that AI will misunderstand and bring about the apocalypse,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sure. The other scenario is you might hook it up in hopes that it will bring about the apocalypse, and
Go
it'll
crazy.
go,
Yep.
that doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? Right? Like
Yeah.
it might let you down, right? And this comes
Yeah.
up again into that whole AGI to ASI gap, where if you
Yeah.
make general intelligence, it will want to become super intelligent. You may
Yeah.
create general intelligence. We might figure that out somehow and then go, now, grow and become uber powerful. And it'll go, nope, that's actually probably the least efficient way to do this. We should just have multiple specialized models instead. And then just write new little models that go out and do stuff and be like, there, problem solved. The world didn't end. And be like, well, that
On
was
a
disappointing.
just on a technical level, and I'm
Sure.
going to put it again in human terms. We've talked about this again many times in other conversations, but that AI struggles, as you pointed out,
Right.
to doing language and math well at the same time. It's left brain or right brain, to use a simplistic analogy.
Right.
Is AGI simply putting those two together, or is it more
So
than that?
theoretically, yes. So
Yeah.
conceptually, AGI would be a model, right? Not what you propose, which we already have, which is MOE, mixture mixture of experts, multitude of
Yeah, yeah,
experts, mixture of
yeah, yeah,
experts, where it's delegated. You have
yeah,
specialized models and sort of the orchestration, and it will hand off tasks and then interpret responses and present it. Um, IBM does that. I want to say that's IBM is really kind of championed that framework. Mind you, also, side note, IBM is one of the few AI companies not pursuing ASI. Just in case anybody wants to boycott ASI, IBM. They're not going that route. They don't care. Good for them.
yeah,
They're doing things that are more useful, like, Watson. So let's cure cancer rather than try to obliterate the human race. So, uh, yay, Watson. Um, so a mixture of experts, whatever, MOE. Uh, we already do that. AGI is the theory that you can have a model that is better at humans in all domains, is sort of the abstract technical sort of definition, which
Oh,
means you could drop it in to any scenario.
yep,
And if it is, and here's the key, novel, meaning it has never seen it before,
yep.
it will outperform its human counterpart given a novel situation in any
It can
domain.
it can quote Shakespeare. It can create its own Shakespeare poem
Sure.
and beat you in chess.
Sure.
Yeah. Question: do
Right.
you think that left and right brain amalgamation will ever? Do you think that will happen? Just guessing the future.
I mean, well, if we're talking about true AGI,
Yeah.
I think you still run. Is it possible? Sure. Why not? I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it without difficulty? Absolutely not. And not even a, oh, well, we'll figure it out. I have absolute
Yeah.
faith in humanity's ability to solve all
Yeah. Yeah.
problems. I'm not going there. Again, the problems, the two biggest issues, ignoring energy and physical resources, right? Because energy matters, water matters, but boy, NVIDIA, they're
Yeah.
they're 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 apparent next generation of chip and architecture for cooling, super awesome. Like really addressing that problem aggressively.
Hmm.
And they've got some pretty cool architecture in place. Anyway, so technical hurdles, sure, we can overcome them. We're pretty good at that. We've demonstrated that as a species. As long as humanity doesn't engage in another civil uprising against empires, which causes all of this to fall apart anyway, which is probably far more likely than accomplishing AGI, is the fall of Western civilization. Um, is it, your main issues with AGI are the current issues with AI. Is you have to be able to train it to get better than humans in all domains. It's not that we haven't really figured out how to do that, though that's a true statement. It's that it might not be possible to do for two reasons. Again, one, training without a reward structure is computationally almost sort of impossible, right? How do you know that you've improved? You have to be able to gauge that. Not everything can be broken down into a reward structure
Right.
just by human existence. We make a lot of assumptions about progress in one domain, and we sort of think that that means that it's a general progress in all domains. That's also not true. Getting better at math doesn't make you better at English. Those are two
Right.
separate domains. Trying to train specialized things. Um, Data is another one of the really big issues. In order to improve, you have to have novel training data that is of high value. It has to be curated. This is one of the problems we've already run into, data scarcity. Our current generation of AI has effectively been trained on all publicly accessible information, which means in order to get the next generation to come out, you have to train it on things it's never seen before. And it has to be trained on something that it's never seen before that's actually valuable, right? It has to
Hmm.
be of high quality because you can't just give it garbage. 70% of the internet is now AI generated stuff. And if you try to train, which is hilarious, it didn't take long. If you
Yeah.
try to train AI on AI content, you end up with what's known as model collapse.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
gets stupider over
Yeah.
time. So if it feeds itself in its own loop, again, it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't grow, it declines, and you end up with gibberish in the end. So for a human, knowing all things is impossible. For an AI, they already kind of accomplished it, and they didn't become gods. So this idea that we could have AGI makes assumptions that there's
Yeah, yeah.
something to train them on, and that we can scale to do so physically, power, thermal issues, heating, cooling, water, etc., etc. Computation, the desire to even be there. Is there enough? Is there enough will to do so? Because this stuff's not cheap. And for as much as everybody wants to bring about ASI, Google, Nvidia, uh, Anthropic, all of that stuff, OpenAI,
Open AI. Yeah.
right? Um, they still exist within a finite world. There are still finite resources of time, money, material resource, human appetite for these things, right? Could it be possible? Yes, if you could orchestrate the world's resources, sure. But that in and of itself, I'd argue, is probably an impossible task, right? In order to pool that amount of resource, I don't know. The counter, of course, is, well, if you make it efficient enough, then you won't need that large of resources. You can still accomplish it in the end, et cetera, et cetera. But the data scarcity one, I think, is one of the biggest hurdles to try to overcome.
That no, see, that is interesting.
Because even
That's
if you
a
give it
yeah.
more information that it's never seen,
Yeah, yeah,
again,
yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to become general.
Yeah,
Because, like
yeah.
right now, for example, it hasn't ingested all corporate documentation because it's proprietary.
Right.
But if you give it all corporate documentation, it just becomes more specialized
Right.
in corporate lingo. That also assumes that of the billions of potential private corporate documents, that they contain enough unique information to be worth training on, right?
Right.
What legal document have you seen that is fundamentally unique compared to all the legal documents AI's already ingested?
Right.
Right? So at that point, it's not new, it's not novel. So how do you improve? You can't improve if it isn't new. You'll just essentially create an identical copy at best or an inferior copy, which happens much more often.
So, we are past our time.
I don't know that
Um,
we accomplished anything,
no, actually, as usual,
but it was
I was
fun anyway.
I was actually disagreeing with you up until the very end, until you gave me those two data points. Those are actually, if you will, encouraging that there is some hard limitations that are
Right,
out there
right,
because it's so, again, like with the cloning thing in the 90s. If you don't know what you're talking about, you go to Star Trek and it's like, well, cloning's dangerous because we'll create a machine, we'll press a button, your evil clone will show up and will take over your life because I saw
right.
that on a TV show.
Not how cloning
And
works.
yeah, and
Right.
it's no, it's more complicated than that. And
Cloning is just
yeah,
accelerated inbreeding.
yeah,
You
exactly.
don't end up with a duplicate, you end up with a
Yeah,
mutant.
yeah.
Right.
And so those last points, because I mean, and again, I do have to run.
Sure.
It's it's so it again, is it the Antichrist? Probably not, but
No.
man, it's the closest thing we've ever come to anything close like it because it's so powerful. It's so amazing. It's so unique.
Sure.
And there's, I guess, the danger of only seeing the uniqueness and not looking
Right.
under the hood. It's like, no, there's some real limitations here.
Also, real quick.
And
Oh,
I don't know
sorry.
one last
Okay.
quick
Yep.
thing, then
Yep.
I'm done.
Okay.
Colossus, the Forbidden Project, 1970.
Thank you. Awesome.
And it's not
Um,
Gregory Peck. It was a guy that looked like Gregory Peck.
discount Gregory Peck.
It was,
So
yes.
the the point that I'll make, because I wanted to, and not to extend into another conversation, but
Yeah.
they're not intelligent. They don't think.
Yes.
In the same way that they are not creative, they do not produce art. Now, let me clarify this super
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
There is a difference between spontaneous creativity of art and commissioning of art. Humans are capable of both. AI is only capable of commissioning. You can commission an AI to create a picture. That is not creativity in a human sense. That's
Right.
creativity in a technical product sense. The
Right.
outcome looks the same, but you can pay a human artist to commission them to paint you a picture.
Right.
Thinking is the same way.
Yeah.
AI is not capable of spontaneous thought. It does not have consciousness. It does not have self-awareness. It does not have genuine experiential understanding. What you're doing is commissioning it, prompting it to produce something that looks like the product of someone who can think. Right?
Right.
Those are two totally different things. Humans, through self-awareness, create.
Right.
AI, through mathematic probability,
Yep.
produce.
Yep.
So it doesn't think on its own at all. It is prompted to produce. You commission it for an outcome. It's really, now, because we don't see under the hood,
Yep.
we think it thinks. Because it
Oh,
sounds human, we think it is human.
oh, it so
So we
does.
haven't made something that thinks. We've made something that mathematically can produce human sounding output. That's
Yeah.
actually very different. Giving birth to a child creates something that thinks. Instantiating an AI model is turning on a program.
Yeah.
Two fundamentally different things. That's my closing.
We didn't get to the job thing, and we're not going to, but I
No,
think what we ended does give some answers to that.
right.
But
The
we'll
job
either
thing
say
is
that for
something that
another
we should
conversation.
absolutely talk about. It does matter, and that does impact people's personal lives, and it has pastoral implication.
So let's do that next time. But this
Sure.
was interesting. And
I mean, I had
again,
fun.
you are much more studied it than I am. So this was interesting. I'm done. So
I
thank
also
you.
am done.
So thank you for listening, Internet Land. If you got through
All,
this,
all two people who even decided to watch this. I
yes,
guarantee you that the title card will probably be click worthy. Um, but then after 5
the
minutes,
Doom
everybody will look
speaker.
away.
I
And the
know.
title card will be generated by ChatGPT because my
Absolutely.
goodness, it's amazing at that.
Yes,
All
it
right.
is. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.